Good afternoon. Good afternoon, and welcome to Real Talk with Mary Grace Media. You are live. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, and Clout Hub. It is the of 2nd of February, 2022, and we're live. So, as you come in, please say hello. Good to see everybody today. I have some people coming in on Facebook. Thank you, Facebook audience. Thank you for all the shares. As you come in, please share this to all of the platforms that that you can. Please share it into groups. Share it into all kinds of places. I just remembered that I forgot to turn off my phone, so hopefully we won't get any interruptions. We'll just see. I'm using my phone as my camera. So many things on the checklist. Um, okay, so I have a lot of news to report today, and I need for just a little bit of prayer because I'm getting interrupted right when my show starts again. So let's just keep going, and I will jump back onto those other messages. All right. So here we go. We've got a lot to talk about. I'm Mary Grace. Please on Facebook share this broadcast into groups, and also on YouTube. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you like the broadcast. Make sure you turn on the notifications. And for every platform that I'm on, just set your alarm for 5 o'clock on 5 o'clock Eastern on weekdays, because that's usually when I go live, and you can't count on the notifications from the social media platforms. Sometimes when I get YouTube notifications, they come about 24 hours after the person went live, and so that doesn't really help me. And if you're on Cloud Hub, please, when you're on Cloud Hub, hit Watch Now. I'm on channel 111, so go to the channels, hit 111, go to Watch Now, and then subscribe. Put in your email. You'll get notifications from them when I go live. And I want to say something about my computer right now. I think that I actually have some issues with the processor, and I think that may be what's going on with my streaming. And so if for some reason we have a lag, I am trying to address that. I'm trying to deal with it. I hope that I don't have to get a new computer. So we'll just see what happens. And it's a little bit old, and I'm hoping that I have enough memory and whatever it is that makes it work with everything we're doing. So just say a little prayer for my processor, and we'll just keep going. But I think that, because I've been lagging on three platforms at the same time, I don't think it's the social media that's actually causing the problem. And I don't think it's my Restream app. I actually think it might be the social media. So, it is what it is. But I'm sorry, it might be the processor in my computer. And it looks like now I'm getting a message already that I'm having a problem with the connection. So what I'm going to try to do today, I can already see that there's a lag. So I'm going to try to go as long as I can. It's obviously not ideal for people to listen and watch when everything is lagging and things aren't lined up. So we might have to pause and do some troubleshooting here. If there's anybody that knows how to troubleshoot that on a Mac without me having to buy a whole new computer, and you want to reach out to me, please email me info@marygracemedia.com. And we'll just see what we can do. I'm not that technical when it comes to that stuff. And there's only so much time, right, to figure it all out. Before I forget, I want to make sure that people know that we are going into another superfoods reset for February, and this is the time to emerge into self care and self love. And one of the things that I've been telling people, especially after COVID, when people have had their kids at home, they've been doing homeschooling, they've had work canceled, this and that and the other, and there's been a lot of stress, and also with everything that happened with the election. So if you are needing to address some issues like energy, brain fog, your emotional state, weight, sleep, pain, those kinds of things, if you've been thinking that you want to deal with that and take care of it, my message to you is that, put your oxygen mask on, get the superfoods into your body because it's going to help lower your stress levels and all of the people and things that you're trying to take care of. It's actually going to work better for you. And I've had so many people tell me that of all ages, different, places in life, young moms, grandmas, dads, people who are working full time. There's just the whole spectrum. And so, when you start to practice self-care and you take the time to really do that, it really makes a difference. And the great thing about our Superfoods Reset is that if you write to me, info@marygracemedia.com, you're going to save $100 or more off of a full month off of the retail price of your reset package. And that actually includes access to our private Telegram chat and access to a private Facebook group if you're on Facebook. And then you're going to get some coaching. So we have coaching sessions starting next week, and you get access to the sessions that we did during January as well. And that all comes when you purchase that Superfoods Reset. So please message me, info@marygracemedia.com, and get in on this with us because it's going to be, it's everybody can benefit whether you need to lose weight or not. There's so many other benefits. So I want to talk a little bit about the news that came out because everybody's been telling me, people are messaging me and saying that that Jeff Bezos stepped down from Amazon. And I don't know about you, but that seems like a really big deal. And then a friend of mine sent me this information. Let me just pull up this text. Uh, um, um, Let me see. So it says, yeah, it says he's stepping down. This was at 4:30. Stepping down as CEO. The company he founded 27 years ago, second richest man in the world. So Amazon's market valuation surpassed $1 trillion for the first time in January. So of course we know that Amazon just made out, like robbers during COVID because everybody was ordering from them. I do know that. Now here's something else that somebody sent me, which I think is interesting. Jeffrey Epstein's alleged, this was in 2019. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell attend uh, an event during the 2005 Wall Street concert series. Okay, so Jeffrey Epstein's alleged Madam Ghislaine Maxwell was a guest at a Jeff Bezos hosted retreat in 2018, report says. So that's kind of interesting. Uh, so I think we should monitor this story because one of the things that our intelligence insider told us is to keep track of resignations and deaths among CEOs, and I think that still applies today. So just monitor that. I haven't looked at the chatter. I haven't looked at what people are saying and digging up about this, but that's definitely a significant development, especially because he's not that old. It's not like he's 90 years old and just ready to hand the business over to somebody else in the family. So that's kind of a big deal because he's one of the people that Trump has called out by name repeatedly. He's talked about Jeff Bezos and the Washington Post and how badly they treated him and all of his monopolies that he's had with the US mail. And remember, he was also in the news last week because he didn't want the Amazon employees to use mail-in voting to get their union votes in, which I think is really interesting, isn't it? The irony. Oh gosh, we don't want you to use mail-in voting because it's not secure. Do you not see how crazy that sounds after you spent the last year telling us that mail-in voting was perfectly legit and that the whole country should go to mail-in voting? Wow. Hmm. Yeah, that's the epitome of being tone deaf. They don't even realize. They have no idea just how crazy that sounds when they are lecturing everybody on the fact that if we don't if we don't want mail-in voting, we're racist and xenophobic and homophobic and this phobic and that phobic. But if he doesn't want mail-in voting for his company, which is much smaller than the United States of America, then he's in the right. I mean, the double standards with these people, it just never, ever, ever stops. Never. Yeah, it is a big deal. So I expect to see them more in the news. And speaking of the news, yesterday I shared a picture that was allegedly a picture of the president having a conversation with the troops over Christmas or recently, and it was a photo of him doing a video conference from Mar-a-Lago. And my friend Michelle did some sleuthing on that, and she noticed that people are circulating a lot of these pictures of him meeting with the troops, allegedly meeting with the troops. And her theory on this is that it's actually a setup where they're trying to set the president up and make it appear that he is interfering and running a shadow government, and that he's at some point they're going to accuse him of the Logan Act, violating the Logan Act. I know that meeting with the troops isn't a violation of the Logan Act, but her theory is that this might be a stepping stone to accusing him of interference on other levels. So that's kind of interesting. And I showed that picture and I didn't vet it. And so I thought that it was more recent. But the one that I showed yesterday, she said was actually from 2017. And so I think that it's kind of an interesting thing to keep an eye on. And then also, just remember anything that the media brings up right now, any scandal that you see in the news is probably a distraction from what's really happening. Now, do I think that the president is still active in some way in what is going on and what is going to come? Do I think that he's not finished? Absolutely. But I think that there is I think there's a lot more going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. And I said this yesterday, I'm going to say it again, I'm going to keep saying it. It's not over. He said we're not finished. Some people think that that's just, that he's going to be working behind the scenes, that he's going to be helping endorse candidates and things like that. I actually think that's not that's not the story. I think that we are actually going to have President Trump back. And do I know how that's going to play out? Do I know how it's going to work? No, because I don't have a crystal ball. Do I know the timing on it? No. But do I believe 100% that it's going to happen? I do. And I know a lot of people don't. And so if you don't have faith for that, go back and watch my show from yesterday, even though we had interruptions. I think it was a really good word. And I think that people got encouraged by that. And so I don't want you to give up hope. I really don't. I don't know the timing. There is chatter that he is, that the military is in charge right now, and that the person that they put into the White House is actually not the president of anything, or if anything, that it's a defunct corporation. And I'm being careful. I'm being careful right now with my wording because I'm on YouTube, and we know that they said that everything happened officially, that everything was said officially and declared officially, and there was an inauguration and blah 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 blah. Okay, so they remind you of that every time that you log into YouTube, they remind you of that. So yeah, YouTube, we haven't forgotten your narrative, and yeah, we'll just let you go with your narrative because big tech and big media has been running with their narrative forever. So why would we interfere with that right now? We're just going to let you guys be the authors of your own demise. That works better anyway, less work for us. Somebody asked, where do we see yesterday's shows? They're on my Facebook feed, Mary Grace Media. I keep them up, and so you should be able to find them. So as far as the president goes, one of the things that I wanted to do is there has been a lot of frustration, a lot of sadness, a lot of just discouragement, because of course the left and the media is trying to rub it in your noses every single day, the win, so-called win. And so I think that it's important to think about something, and that is this. I want to remind you that one of the things that God constantly tells his people is to remember his goodness, to remember the things that he's done, and to call them to mind, to call to mind his goodness, to call to mind the prophetic words that he's spoken over you and your life and your situation. And and that is something that I believe is really going to be important right now going forward, because whatever we think about is actually part of what frames our destiny. And the Bible says, "As a man thinketh, so shall he be." And so the things that we think about, the things that we say, have a direct impact on our reality, past, present, and future. And so we can think about all the bad things that have happened over the last whatever year, 6 months, whatever, or we can think about what God has done. And the truth of the matter is, I was thinking about this because in 2016, our country had a miracle, and that is that Donald Trump was elected president against all odds. And we know that it was against all odds because we know now that the other side had it rigged. And if you think about that, now knowing what we know now about the rigged votes, knowing what we know now about the systems that they used, it's very clear that they had it rigged even then. And we have found out that the votes that came in for President Trump were so many that it broke the algorithm, and that our intelligence agencies were able to that our intelligence agencies were able to stop it from happening. And so we didn't know at the time what a huge miracle it was. I mean, we were so happy, but the truth is, we also got put into a fight that we didn't see coming, because we were so happy about the winning that we thought the other side would accept it, because that's what we've always done. We've always graciously accepted that, okay, it's we lost, you lost, you won. We thought we were going to win, but we lost. So we're going to be gracious for the next 4 years. We'll come back and we'll win next time. That's pretty much the way that we've dealt with it. And that's the way conservatives have typically done things. And even though it was a bitter pill to swallow when we had the other regime in office. But what happened in 2016 wasn't even close to that. I mean, we have been vilified and attacked daily ever since. And people, I mean, what's happened. People lost their jobs, people lost family members, people, you name it. I mean, it's been a fight, since 2015. It's just been battle, 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 battle. And so because of that, I think that when we got to 2020, we really thought, okay, this is it. We have the momentum. The tides are going to turn. We're not going to be public enemy number one anymore, because there's so much momentum here, and there's so much of a groundswell of support for our president that people clearly, surely have to see this and back off. Well, that's not what happened. They stole it again, and they actually managed to steal it. Okay, now, before you get before you get depressed and you think, wait a minute, I thought she was going to encourage us. I am going to encourage you, because here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about what our country would be like right now if Hillary Clinton had won the election in 2016, if we hadn't gotten President Trump in office. Just think about that for a minute. Let's just have a moment where you ponder what your life would be like today, and what the country and the world would be like today. It's pretty sobering, isn't it? Did God do a miracle in 2016? Did God do a miracle in 2016? when Donald Trump got into office. He definitely did. And if you understand, if you go back, if you find the 20 the 16-year plan to destroy America, Hillary Clinton was the second 8 years of that. Hussein was the first 8 years, and they planned to hand the baton to her, and that she would carry out the next 8 years. Now, currently, what they're trying to do is to speed up what they wanted to do with Hillary Clinton. I personally believe that that is not going to happen. They're not going to succeed. But just think about that. Would I even be having a broadcast right now? Would you be listening to me right now? Would we have our president getting nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 4 times in a row? No, we would actually be in new wars. We would be at war with North Korea. We would be at war with that other country right next to North Korea. We would have more troops sent into the Middle East. Soleimani would be alive, al-Baghdadi would be alive, and they would be spawning more and more and more offshoots of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. You know that. You know that's what would have been happening. And the worst thing is that those people would have gotten rich off of it, because that's how they make money. That's how they launder money. They would have created crisis after crisis after crisis. Our country would be flooded with more refugees. Our borders would be completely wide open. Our sons and daughters would be murdered at the hands of illegal aliens. Entire states would have been taken over by so-called refugees from other countries who don't assimilate into our country. Think about it. Think about how sobering it would be if she had gotten into office, because you know that she would not have been running things. Are you tracking with me? And so I want you to think about what the president accomplished. If you need to, just start making a list. There are lists online, and I think that people in the chat can put up some links to some of those websites that explain what what the uh, what the president accomplished. Somebody just said that 2 million would have died of COVID. Yeah, probably. I mean, this what they do constantly is they create crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis, and then they use your money, because they use you as labor to 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 funnel money into their coffers so that they can fund these humanitarian projects, and then they can launder the money back into their pockets. That's what they've been doing for years. And so, again, I believe that it's coming to a stop. I believe that there's been massive exposure and that there's going to be more. You wouldn't know about any of this if she had gotten office. It was a miracle that President Trump got into office. And so, this is not over. And I see somebody in the chat on YouTube who seems to be pretty much in despair. But I really think that we really need to focus on the emphasis of my broadcast today is to focus on what God has done and what He's doing. He is not going to allow this country to be destroyed at the hands of these criminals. He's not going to do it. And I wanted to remind you of a story that's in the Bible in the book of Joshua. And this is about when God brings the Israelites across the Jordan. And remember, they didn't get across the Jordan into the promised land because they wandered around in the desert for so long. And it was mostly of their own doing. I mean, talk about squirrels. I mean, they went down so many rabbit trails. It was insane. 40 years worth. The generation that left Egypt didn't make it into the promised land because they abandoned God. They forgot what He had done for them, and they didn't teach it to their children, even though He told them to. And so it was the next generation that had to go in, and that was Joshua and Caleb. And what God told Joshua is really important. He said to Joshua, let me find this. He said to him in Joshua 1, he said, "Every place on which the sole of your foot treads, I have given it to you, just as I spoke to Moses." And and that's important, and I'm going to come back to that in just a minute, because I think that people are forgetting that God is really the one who is doing this here, and he is the one that is leading us through this fight. And so we really need to remember his promises and his directives. And I think that people have forgotten that. And so going through this story is very interesting. He told Joshua to be strong and courageous, for I've given them into your hand. And so it was really Joshua's job to believe. It wasn't Joshua's job to scheme and plan and come up with his idea of how they would win. It was his job to believe what God said about him. And so for you, what is it that God has said about this country? What is it that God has said about you and your destiny? What has he said about your life? What has he said about Donald Trump? He has said that Donald Trump is president for 2 terms. And I believe that. And so this story is not over. And so one of the things that we find in this story, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but they lift the siege of Jericho. That's a big story, right? Because they had to march around the city, and God gave them a battle strategy that was, again, just like the Gideon strategy. It really didn't make sense at the time. You're going to march around the city 7 times, do it again, march around 7 times, and then they're thinking, this is not a winning strategy. Why are we just walking around in circles, right? Even though they walked around in circles in the in the desert for 40 years. So, but they did it. And then they lifted a shout, and then the walls came down. We know that story of Jericho. And um and so so then God brings them to the point, and I'm fast forwarding here, but he brings them to the point where they get to where they have the Ark of the Covenant, and they're going to cross the Jordan. And so they cross the Jordan, okay? And um and then he says to he said the Lord says to Joshua, he says, when you come to the edge of the waters of the Jordan, you shall stand still in the Jordan. Okay. Um, and then uh and then he says, by this you shall know that the living God is among you, and that he assuredly dispossesses them from before you, the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Hivite, the Pezite, the Gershite, the Amorite, and the Jebusite. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is crossing over ahead of you into the Jordan. Um, and then he says, then take for yourselves 12 men from the tribes of Israel, one man for each tribe. It shall come about when the soles of the feet of the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, rest in the waters of the Jordan. The waters of the Jordan will be cut off, and the waters which are flowing down from above will stand in one heap. So God tells them, he tells them, walk right into the Jordan. And they're carrying the Ark of the Covenant. They're carrying the presence of God. And it doesn't necessarily make sense. You walk into the river, you're supposed to be crossing over into the promised land. And God says, just tell the priest, just keep walking and walk into the Jordan, and the water will dry up. We've already seen this happen in the Red Sea. We know that God did it, but that was in the previous generation. And so some of these people don't know, they weren't there for that, and they don't know that this happened. Or even if they heard about it, they're probably not thinking about that. And so, it's an act of faith. And this is what they did. It says, so when the people set out from their tents to cross the Jordan with the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant before the people, and when those who carried the Ark came into the Jordan, and the feet of the priest carrying the ark were dipped in the edge of the water. For the Jordan overflows all its banks all the days of harvest. The waters which were flowing down from above stood and rose up in one heap a great distance away at Adam, the city that is beside Zerathon. And those who were flowing down toward the sea of Arabah, the salt sea, were completely cut off. So the people crossed opposite Jericho. So this is very interesting that it was during the harvest time, and the water was overflowing. So not only it wasn't like, in the desert, sometimes when you come to a river, it's actually just a river bed because the waters are dried up, just like in Arizona. But when the rains are flowing, and when the rains are flowing, and when the water is flowing, and the river is full, It's actually like a monster river, and it's dangerous because, things along the path get swept away. And that was actually and there's currents. It's not the time you cross the river. And so God tells them to go to the river and to walk into it with the Ark of the Covenant. And he tells them to do this at the impossible time. He doesn't tell them to cross the Jordan when it's a trickle of water. He tells them to cross the Jordan during the biggest water flow there is. Do you think that's a winning strategy? Does God know what he's doing? Maybe. Maybe he does. Maybe he's telling them to do this during the time when it's least logical because he wants the world to see. He wants his people to see this is my doing. I'm going to dry up the river. I'm going to take you across because what's in front of you is impossible. I'm the God of the impossible. Maybe this is a story that God wants to be told with the preceding words, God did it. Maybe he wants the title of this story to be God did it, because the situation that he puts Joshua and the Israelites in is impossible. You can't cross that river in the state that it was. And so Joshua's job was to believe God. Because remember, he told Joshua in the beginning, he said, every place that your foot falls, I will give into your hand. And so Joshua actually had to walk so that his feet would touch the ground in order for God to give it into his hand. If he stood still, then that was his territory. If he kept walking, that became his territory. So he and the priest had to walk into the river, and the waters then stood still. And just like when they crossed the Red Sea, the waters then became, the ground became dry. And if you've ever been near a river or a creek when the water starts to recede after a flood, what is it that you encounter when you step on the edges? What is it that you encounter when you step? You encounter mud. It's muddy. So isn't it strange that they walked across dry ground? This wasn't the time of the dried up riverbed. This was the time of the overflowing riverbed. It was supposed to be muddy. But not only did God move the water aside, he gave them dry ground to walk on. So their feet didn't even get wet. And then they crossed into the promised land. So he said, everywhere that your foot touches, I will give into your hand. And so Joshua's job with the priest was to keep walking. It wasn't to figure out how to move the river out of the way or how to dry up the ground so that they wouldn't sink up to their knees in mud as they carried the Ark of the Covenant. God determined that his presence would go into the promised land, and he made the way supernaturally for them to get his presence in the ark into the promised land. Their job was to believe and obey. Where are we right now in our faith? God has said it, he will do it. So, what happened then is that they crossed the Jordan. And then the very interesting part of this is that God told them to make a memorial. And this is the essential part of what we're doing right now, is that every victory that God gives us, he wants us to make a memorial. He wants us to remember. And so what I believe he's saying to everybody today is, remember what I've done so far. Remember that I saved this country from Hillary Clinton getting into office. Remember that I saved this country from another 8 years of Hussein. Remember that I gave you all the evidence. And what he told to Joshua and his men, uh, he said this. He said, "Take for yourselves 12 men from the people, one from each tribe, and command them, saying, go take for yourselves 12 stones from here out of the middle of the Jordan, and from the place where the priest's feet are standing firm, and carry them over with you and lay them down in the lodging place where you will lodge tonight." And so what they did is they went actually into the middle of the river, and they got these stones and they brought them over. and they made a memorial. And according to the Bible, that memorial is there to this day. Um, and so um, and so he says to them, "Let this be a sign among you. Let this be a sign among you uh, that so when your children ask later, what do these stones mean to you? You shall say to them, because the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. So these stones shall become a memorial to the sons of Israel forever." And so I really I want you to remember this because, you know, crossing the Jordan wasn't something that they figured out how to do on their own. They didn't game plan it. They didn't scheme it. They didn't they didn't put they didn't put anything in place to make it happen. They didn't build a dam to pull back the floodwaters. They didn't build locks to divert the floodwaters. They walked across the flooded river because God dried it up. All they did was listen to him and believe him and obey. And so that is the faith. They believed that God was bringing them into the promised land. They just didn't know exactly how it was going to be accomplished at that point. And so this is what I wanted to encourage you with today because God has a plan for America and it's not destruction because as America goes, the world goes. And I truly do not believe that this is the time of the end of the world. A lot of people are preaching that. They're preaching, you know, that this is it, that this is the rapture, that this is the time of tribulation. I truly don't believe that. And so I'm not going to get into that eschatology, but I think that, you know, it's really important to remember that God is not finished and he's not a liar. And so I'll take heat for that. You might take heat for that, but this story is far from over. And so I really want to encourage you, make for yourself a memorial. And if you have a journal and you are writing down everything that God is doing, just write it down for him. Just write it down. Just write down and write it down. Number one, Hillary Clinton lost the election. That's a big deal. So go through and ask God to bring to mind all of the victories that we have had over the last 5 years. I say 5 years because the president really, you know, he announced in 2015, and that's when things really started heating up. And so remind yourself of everything that he's done, of all that's been revealed, all the lies that have been revealed, all of the corruption that's been revealed. We wouldn't know about any of that if Donald Trump had not become president in 2016. God is not finished with this country. He is not finished with this world. There is a time of such great abundance and prosperity coming because it's not even close to what God has for us as a world. And so this is where we are. Somebody just said we need the truth to come to the light. The truth is coming to light. It's coming to light every day. We're seeing the truth about what has been happening for years. So yeah, that's my take on things. And it's just, you know, we're in a time where we really have to walk in faith, and God is gonna come through in a way that gives him all the glory. It's going to be the story is going to be God did it. God did it. God did it. It wasn't what we did. And that includes putting our trust in one man or two men or one group of men or women or anything like that. It just isn't it's not going to be that way. I don't believe. So I hope this is helpful. I hope that you're finding encouragement with this. I haven't been reporting on the news as much just because I feel like this is the direction that God wants me to go right now, is just to keep people encouraged, because I think that one of the things that happens with the news is that it's designed to enrage you and to get you distracted from what he's doing. I appreciate everybody sharing this. So if you haven't done it already in Facebook, make sure you share it into groups. In YouTube, copy the link and then share it with people that you know. Send it in private messages, send it in emails. Get the word out that this broadcast is live. Share the Cloud Hub link with people. So I appreciate everybody doing that, and make sure that you're subscribed to all of my channels. Make sure you also go to my website, marygracemedia.com, and wait for the pop-up, and then put your name in so that you'll get on my mailing list. Because if for some reason I get taken off of all of these platforms and you can't find me, you will at least be on my mailing list. And just, a reminder that I will keep your information private, and so you're not gonna I'm not gonna sell your email or anything like that. But that's how you're gonna find me. Sometimes people email me and they say, "Where did you go?" Well, it's you never know because of what could happen with the social media giants. Okay, so please just contact me there, but sign up for the mailing list. And then lastly, I talked about this at the beginning. There is a superfoods reset going on. We are doing a transformation group, and so if there are things that you're dealing with physically, whether you have uh, pain or inflammation, trouble sleeping, trouble with, making it through the day, fatigue, brain fog, whether you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to get your blood sugar under control, these are um, these are important things, and it's time to get in shape. It's time to take charge of your own health, put on your own oxygen mask so you can help the others around you. Get the superfoods into your body. It's made such a big difference in my life. I have people writing to me all the time telling me what a blessing it's been for them. So please write to me, info@marygracemedia.com, and you'll get a voucher so that you can save $100 or more off of the retail of your full month supply for the transformation group. And you get access to a private Facebook group, you get access to a private Telegram chat, you get recordings of past coaching that we've had, and then you get live coaching, you get access to live coaching groups coming up in February. So this is a tremendous gift that you can give yourself and a loved one. I have a lot of couples who are doing the transformation together during February, and so that's a nice thing that you can give each other. Instead of going out and spending money on an expensive restaurant where they make you wear a mask just to get in the door, you can buy yourself superfoods and treat yourselves to a healthier lifestyle. And that's a good present to give each other. Just something to think about. Okay. I will be back on tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern. It looks like we had a good stream today. So thank you for everybody for praying for the live stream. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We didn't have any lags. Nothing fell apart. And so I really do appreciate that. Okay, I have a comment in Facebook. My 83 years of experiences tell me you're spot on. Thank you, Joyce. I appreciate that. Uh, yeah, I really believe that God is taking our country in a good direction. I think that people had to have some awakenings to see what was really going on, and I think that more and more people are waking up. And so, God is not punishing us. Uh, I think that we do that to ourselves enough. Are there going to be people that are experiencing the wrath of God? I do believe that. I believe that because it's a consequence of not coming under his grace. What do I mean by that? I don't believe that God is lashing out at people and looking for people to destroy. I believe that when people refuse to acknowledge or embrace God's grace, that the consequence of that is that they come under his wrath, which is the same. If you refuse to acknowledge gravity and you step off the edge of a roof, you're going to experience the results of gravity. And I believe that that is what happens, when people are given a chance. Either they are reprobate or they refuse to receive what God has for them, then that's when they experience his wrath. And so I think some people are going to experience that. I really do. And he's giving them every chance, just like our president giving everybody people chances to do the right thing. And it's not too late if you're one of those people who has participated in the coup, in the crimes that we've seen played out. God is looking to have you return to him and confess your sins and receive Jesus as your savior and come into his kingdom and be restored and forgiven. That's what he is giving everybody an opportunity to do. But there have been some really heinous crimes committed, especially against our children. And so, it's up to you. If your conscience is still bothering you, then you know that your conscience hasn't been seared and there's still a chance for you to repent and turn back to God. But that's your choice. God will never make you do that. So, just wanted to finish with that today. And I will be back tomorrow. Please send me a message if you do want a voucher for the superfoods. Try to put superfoods in the subject line, info@marygracemedia.com. I better slow that down. Info@marygracemedia.com. And you can also partner with me on the show. You can go to marygracemedia.com and click on support. I have some links there where you can do like a one time Venmo thing, or you can do a monthly partnership. Some people do that. So thank you, everybody, for doing that. And I will be back tomorrow. Have a great day. Thank you to all my moderators and to all the people who have participated in the chat and for sharing this. One more time, share it to every group that you belong to on Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe. And it was great having everybody here today. Have a beautiful afternoon.